Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I haven't seen you guys for a while. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Carolingian period. And, we've been talking about the Middle Ages now through this module and kind of weigh in a little bit on that as well. Now, the Carolingian period really begins around 800. It's a nice, easy to remember date. Two things. It was a really important time because we're going to see really for the first time a centralized government, right? We've been looking at the barbarians and also the monastic orders that were pretty far-flung and remote places where books like the books of Kells were produced. But what we see around 800 is a more it's kind of centralization of population and power. Now, two things are really necessary for the development of this medieval civilization that occurs at this time. First was the Christianization of the barbarians that had been kind of circulating through Europe at this time, and that basically had occurred. It was only the Vikings who remained pagan. And also, in order to kind of promote a civilized society, we need this kind of partial unification of Europe, and that is going to occur under Charlemagne. Now, this period we've been talking about in this unit so far, the early Middle Ages, sometimes this is the same era called the Dark Ages, which really lasts from about 400 to about 1400. And as we now know, this was not just a dark age by any means. It was an age of great movement, transition, one of great migration, as we see groups of different peoples moving across Europe during this time, settling in various regions, and then encountering Christianity and adopting it in different ways. Now, through these kind of settlements, as these barbarians settle down, becoming more civilized, they're going to come in contact and create permanent monuments, many of which will stylistically mimic Roman traditions with their own unique flair, right? We studied this in the creation of the Hiberno-Saxon manuscripts, right, where we get this kind of syncretic blending between the indigenous Celtic tradition and Christian imagery in those extraordinary handmade books. Now, the Carolingian period is named thus after its founder, Charlemagne. Carolingian is just a derivation of his name. Charlemagne was a Frankish ruler who basically sought to revive the Western Roman Empire and educate his population in an attempt to imitate the glory and sophistication of Rome. They began considering themselves to be Romans. And you could imagine the shock of the Byzantines that were, living away around Constantinople, thinking that they were Romans, that this Western group were now claiming to be the successors of Rome. Charlemagne was propelled on his quest to kind of reenact Rome when Pope Leo III named him to be the Emperor of Rome, the successor of Constantine, and Charlemagne became known as the first of the Holy Roman Emperors. This event took place in St. Peter's in Rome. However, quite shrewdly, Charlemagne extracted himself from Rome and returned to Aachen in Germany for his base of operations. There was the Pope attempted to really convey influence over him, and Charlemagne was sure to really assert his kind of independence from the Bishop of Rome or the Pope. When he returns to the north, he succeeds in uniting most of France and Germany. He also subjected the Slavs to the north, brought them under his fold, and he conquered the Lombards, who were in Italy at the time, and thus united Europe. Charlemagne is going to be, well, it's going to be under Charlemagne's rule that we're going to see the kind of organization of Europe, or where we see this kind of turn towards organization and order. He's going to begin by establishing a new calendar. It's going to be Charlemagne that's going to discard the Roman system of counting time, which, probably not surprising, began with the founding of Rome, which happened in 753 BCE. Charlemagne is going to change that and establish year 1 as the year of Christ's birth. Of course, this is the calendar that we still have today in the West. There was a little bit of fudging it in terms of the exact day or year of Christ's birth. It was designed so that Charlemagne's coronation would occur in 800, now in the year of our Lord. Another part of his kind of organization of Europe is going to take the form of kind of embracing a cultural army. And the Benedictine monks are going to play a critical role for Charlemagne in bringing a sense of order and civilization to Europe. The Benedictines, led by Saint Benedict of Nursia, was founded his order in 529. Benedict is going to believe that evil was the result of idleness, which could be remedied by ensuring that every hour of the day was either spent reading sacred texts or working. Up until this time, the life of a monk was quite different than the way we might imagine it today, which is much more in keeping with the Benedictine example. For instance, the monks who were working in the scriptorium in places like Iona, creating the fabulous Book of Kells manuscript. Those monks were the sons of the Celtic kings, right? They were princes. They lived quite a pretty luxurious lifestyle. They had slaves working for them. They were often married. They devoted themselves really exclusively to kind of educational pursuits. This is not the case for this new order of monks, the Benedictines, who are going to come to prominence under Charlemagne's reign. This new order of monks are going to be very, very diligent and working, creating religious communities. Their monasteries will be, full operational, highly organized places. You're going to learn about this in your assignment. Very much self-sufficient, based on the foundation of a work ethic. They're going to run hospitals out of their monasteries, kind of reach out to the community. There will be schools, will be very much a kind of source for the communities. In a world that really had, very few towns, these Benedictine monasteries are going to be kind of a central component. It's also going to be during this time that we're going to see religious texts be organized into chapters, right? We're going to see books, kind of take the form that we know today, that are kind of laid out in chunks of information. I know in kind of making these modules, I've been very mindful of chunking information so you guys can, absorb what you're learning. This impulse really begins here in the Carolingian period in organizing books around central themes. Also, as you're going to see in your upcoming assignment, we're going to see the organization of the monasteries themselves with the plan of St. Gall. We're going to see the layout of a monastery, kind of a central plan, so it can be replicated in different monasteries across Europe. to get this kind of centralized sensibility. I always think of it as the beginning of kind of like the IKEA idea, where you have kind of furniture kind of even based on a module. The planet St. Gall that you're going to study is kind of based on a singular module that then will be replicated, and this one standard of measure to make it easy to replicate. And once the monastery is laid out in a specific, highly organized way, as you'll see, there's the kitchen. Next to the kitchen is the bakery. Next to the bakery is the mill where the wheat is actually ground. Next to that is the field. So everything is done as efficiently as possible. This all really begins in the Carolingian period. Another important aspect of Charlemagne that I want you to kind of take on board is he was a great lover of the classical world. He himself will be literate. He'll be able to read and write Greek and Latin. And so we're going to see a very kind of self-conscious turn towards the classical during Charlemagne's reign. And I think we see that really well in this kind of beautiful small bronze work that I'm showing you here. This is an equestrian portrait. There's some debate whether this is Charlemagne or his grandson, Charles the Bold, but it is quite significant that we see an equestrian portrait, right? Calling to mind, of course, none other than our classical equestrian portrait of Marcus Aurelius. We see this Carolingian king, whether it be Charlemagne or his grandson, very much emulating this example of a great Roman emperor. Like Marcus Aurelius, this Carolingian ruler is larger on his horse than any man could actually ever be. He is wearing imperial robes. He holds a globe in his hand, a symbol of his dominion over the world. It is bronze, but one of the key differences now in the Middle Ages, the ability to cast complex, hollow cast bronze, really, was lost. And so this equestrian portrait of the Carolingian is quite small, right? It's only a few centimeters, 24 centimeters high. Is that even a foot high? Something about that, where, of course, that equestrian portrait of Marcus Aurelius is over life size. So the kind of skills that we see evolve during the classical age, much have been lost, but we do start to see a desire to emulate these great kings of the past. So it's a very, very interesting time. Okay.